Welcome to Buzz is Building with our guy, Joel Smith. Every Wednesday, he joins us for the last block of the show here to provide 5 players with some buzz that you need to keep an eye on heading into each given week. Joel, it's week 11, buddy. What's going on?
How you doing? I'm excited to get this going. I have lots of social media buzz around some certain players, so try to dig in deep, find some things to talk about this week.
All right, yeah, we have 5 really interesting players / situations to dive into here, so let's let it rip. Give us your first one.
First one is Derrick Henry. It's my favorite stat of the week. When we're looking at the expected touchdowns in terms of Derrick Henry's volume, where he's getting the ball, how often, that sort of thing. Right now, his expected touchdowns is 0.7 below, or his touchdowns is below his expected touchdowns by 0.7. So there's not much there at first. But then you look at last year, he had 18 touchdowns on an expected touchdowns of 12.6. Right now, his pace for the season is the exact same, 12.6. He's still getting the same amount of volume. I think he's still the same player. His efficiency's been there. The touchdowns just haven't really come yet. So there's been lots of complaining, rightfully so, that he hasn't had those ceiling games. When are they going to come? I think it is soon, because this offensive line, a little bit of a downgrade, but is not so much of a downgrade in terms of this offense that he shouldn't be scoring well above his expected, just like he did last year. Like, the situation as a whole is still really good.
Yeah, situation is still good, and I'm always expecting more touchdowns when Lamar Jackson is a part of the proceedings, when the defense is better. That's I think the key for Henry here to start the year. And I wonder if Zach Orr has to start to think about this, because last year the defense, the same thing. It started really slow, and then they're like, all right, break glass in case of emergency, change Kyle Hamilton's role, and that really helped. This year, they've done the opposite of that, where they, instead of bringing him from safety, they brought him down to the box. I also want to give a shout out to Roquan Smith, who is playing great football right now after really struggling last season. So with the defense being better, that's good for Derrick Henry. So to me, Joel, my guess, and you can tell me if you feel I'm off on this, at some week, maybe it's this week in Cleveland, I don't know, but certainly Jets, Bengals after that, we're going to have one of these like 3 touchdown Derrick Henry games, and this all looks like it corrects itself in the long run.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen soon. I did see like that Kyle Hamilton video. I think it was Ben Solak, so shout out to him, about how much this defense has improved. That was one of the keys. Lamar being back in this offense, just being a powerhouse again, definitely one of those keys. And there's some unluckiness in there, like Justice Hill last week, vulturing the touchdown. But I did look at the schedule. That's like the key part here is like, I think the touchdowns are coming, but when? The schedule right now from week 12, so the week after this, to the week 15, the first round of the fantasy playoffs, he has the best schedule for running backs. Part of that is he plays the Bengals twice. But incredible schedule.
Helps.
I think that's a lot of that is where that's coming. So if you need to make a stretch, like you need to get in the playoffs, I think he's a good buy there, especially that round 1 game. Where week 11 against the Browns, really tough matchup this week. And then those last 2 games of the fantasy playoffs, it's New England and I believe Green Bay off the top of my head. But 2 really hard matchups to end the season. So I think there is a trade window depending on what your team needs for sure.
I like it. I've got Derrick Henry on 2 of my good teams, so I'm hoping that you're right about that one. Okay, let's get to the next one here.
Bijan Robinson is next. There's been lots of questions on Bijan, just like what's going on. There is lots and lots of flaws, I would say. Not his fault, flaws that he is able to mask. But even throwing out the Kirk Cousins game, it's like throw that out completely. A lot of what he's been able to do has come on those explosive plays. So those first 7 weeks of the season, he was the RB1 in terms of fantasy points on explosive plays. These last 3 weeks, he's 31st in those points on those explosive plays. So it just hasn't really happened. And when that doesn't show up in the box score, well, there's not too much else that he's got going for him. The other pro outside of that is the receiving. So taking out that Cousins game, he's still 6.4 targets per game this year with Penix. It's the 3rd best among running backs. But last week, like his other floor game, he only had 2 targets. So I don't think that's going to stay that way. He's going to get involved in the passing game again. It's just there is lots of flaws here that we have to look at. 1 goal attempt. That is a problem. A lot of people are talking about his red zone usage. He only has 4 touchdowns on the year. It is a 10-yard catch, 14-yard carry, 50-yard reception, and 81-yard run. So the touchdowns aren't as consistent as some of these guys. Like the opposite would be Josh Jacobs. And just the offense in general, that's the other thing. It has been a little bit worse this year, actually a decent bit worse. Scoring offense, 13th, to 27th in 2025. And then compared to 2024, that yards before contact dropped by 30% this season.
So are you freaking out about this if you have Bijan, or you're trying to add Tyler Algier off the waiver wire if you're not a Bijan manager? What's kind of the takeaway here?
It's a good question. I like Tyler Algier as a handcuff. I wouldn't say I'm freaking out on Bijan because that talent is so good. Like, he'll have his days where he's still going to be great, but I feel like after looking into it, my takeaway is he's really behind those top running backs. Jonathan Taylor, CMC, Jahmyr Gibbs. I would have those three above Bijan at this point. So I've gotten some questions like, would you rather have Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan? I think I'm more solid set on Jahmyr Gibbs right now than Bijan Robinson.
All right, let's get to your third one here, which is a full team situation, or at least a unit on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, the buzz is here in terms of bad buzz. People are not happy with it, but it's the Minnesota passing game. It's not been greatest. Carson Wentz, backup quarterback, we would expect the starter to come back in and be better than Carson Wentz as that backup situation. It hasn't happened. McCarthy, there was lots of upside there, but obviously the floor here too, and it hasn't been greatest. In terms of the catchable target rate, Jefferson's decreased by a decent bit, 74% with Wentz, down to 62%. But the main one is Jordan Addison, like that downfield target, those big shots downfield. He went from 79% on that catchable target rate with Wentz, which was pretty good, really good actually, to dead last in the NFL. 46% in those couple of games with McCarthy here. It hasn't been there for him. So there's some positives here, the schedule mainly, but Jefferson, hard to rank him as that top 10 guy weekly, and Jordan Addison is just getting hard to play him.
Man, yeah, it is getting really hard to play him. And I just don't know if this changes this year, Joel. This is where I'm at. Like, I don't want to completely say it can't happen because McCarthy's a young quarterback and he's still learning. I mean, he's on the injury report again this week, which is just so frustrating that he's always kind of dealing with something from an injury perspective. But I don't want to say it can't get better, but I don't think there's any stat you can point to, or, even watching the film, something to be like, well, this. I just think he has to get better, and we have no idea if that's going to happen or not.
Yeah, I have lost a lot of confidence in this year turning around. Like, they get Dallas week 1 of the playoffs. Do I think McCarthy could do good against Dallas? Yeah, kind of everybody has. A lot of bad quarterbacks have. But in terms of this year, it being consistent, I'm not as confident. Like, I feel like a lot of these rookie quarterbacks, if they are to have that late season surge, there's a lot more signs than we have right now.
Yeah, and I mean, from a games played perspective, he's still early in his rookie season because he has 4 starts so far this year. So it's just, I know he's not a rookie, but obviously this is his first year starting. He didn't play all of last year. Okay, speaking of rookies, for your fourth one here, we do have a rookie running back out there in Las Vegas.
Rookie running back, going back to Ashton Jeanty, checking in on his situation. It's not getting any better, sadly. His yards before contact this year, already second last in the NFL to Quinshon Judkins. He had that injury at left tackle. That doesn't help. Now another injury at center, or in the interior in terms of the offensive line with Powers Johnson. So there's lots of negatives here. The receiving has been a little bit better. Those 2 highest snap rates have been there. He's gotten 5 targets these last couple of games. But in terms of relying on receiving, I'm not as confident in terms of that being able to be consistent and great. I think it'll be more like how Jonathan Taylor has been this year, where the receiving is better, but it's more just an addition to Jonathan Taylor being incredible. And with Jeanty, everything else is kind of not really there. Like, his expected fantasy points per game, a little bit higher than what he's getting right now. The volume is like a low-end RB1 rate, but his scoring isn't up there yet, and I wouldn't expect that to reach that because of that situation, like just the offense in general. Since week 4, after that, or with that big touchdown game, like the Bears when they had that huge blowout game, he's had 6 touchdowns. The Raiders have 10 as a team. So he's scoring a lot of the touchdowns that the Raiders are getting. So it's not like he's going to have a ton more touchdowns coming if the Raiders offense just stays the same. He's actually been getting a lot of them.
Yeah, and I think there's a chance this Raiders offense could get worse as we go. I mean, Geno Smith is banged up now. Is there some percentage chance we see Kenny Pickett start a game here? That would not be ideal for anyone involved. Tyler Lockett playing a bunch of snaps at wide receiver. I think Genty's fine. He's not going to kill you if you have him in fantasy, but I think the ceiling case as you laid out there is really not there, not present at this point. Okay, final one. And this is a guy that social media is always buzzing about. So I'm not shocked to see this player as your 5th and final selection for the week.
It's going to be Jameis Winston. I love talking about Jameis Winston. He's so fun. Every single time he comes in, off the field, on the field, it's incredible. The main thing here is just looking at the past history, these last few years, whether it was in Cleveland or New Orleans, the fantasy points that he provides is incredible. Right now, past 3 years, his average points to his receivers in half PPR is 50.7. The average this year for quarterbacks is at 42. The average for the Giants is right below 40. So we're not too worried in terms of what he can do in terms of fantasy production. He'll probably not be the greatest quarterback in the world from an NFL perspective, but fantasy is what matters here. The air yards, number one in the NFL as a starter. The dropbacks, number one in the NFL as a starter. I would expect him to drop back a decent amount just because the Packers defense, they usually force that in general, and it's the ability to run the ball for this Giants offense, especially without darts. That's been a reason for a lot of their success there. So I'd expect a lot of dropbacks for this week. So the big factors here would be Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, how much they benefit.
I certainly wish it was a more exciting receiving core that Jameis was doing this for. I mean, I'm lower than consensus on Jerry Jeudy, but I mean, Jeudy and Cedric Tillman last year was a lot more interesting than I think what we're getting here in New York. But listen, the Jameis, as I always call it, the Jameis pump and dump scam is real. He's going to come in there, he's going to pump those numbers up, and then his team is going to dump him back to the bench because they don't win football games. And I think we will see that. So I don't know, Joel, I think you got to be pretty desperate to play Slayton or, Wan'Dale Robinson, but this could be a week to do it. And I'm at least interested in, from maybe my personal situation, if Theo Johnson can give us something for those of us who are streaming tight ends. He's somebody that I think is at least worth considering here. But all right, that's Buzz's building for the week. Joel, appreciate you stopping by as always.